7:30, only on TSN.
Going back to 2012, their quarterback was Anthony Calvi.
Vernon Adams is a winner. He's a playmaker.
Little razzle-dazzle. It's Lewis to Adams. Touchdown. How about that?
They love to party in here.
We want that feeling a lot more.
But this is pretty right here. With that
It's been amazing to see his journey this year with Kahari Jones and to see the way this team has grown.
As the Alouettes celebrate once more.
Hello again and welcome. Another week goes by of a summer without football. If there is a season, it will be a much shorter one this fall. But we're going to continue our look at every team in hopes that we get to see what they can do on the field this year. And today, our focus is Montreal, where the Alouettes are coming off their best season in 7. A new president and GM, and they've secured their biggest assets in their head coach and starting quarterback. And as we look at their offseason changes, there will be voids to fill at receiver and running back, with William Stanback going to the NFL, and the guy he replaced, Tyrell Sutton, making his return to the Alouettes. With more on a team trying to build on a solid 2019, here's John Liu.
Thank you, Rod. Coming out of 2019, no CFL club was riding a wave. First winning season since 2012 and first playoff berth in 5 seasons had fans. The ensuing offseason developments, starting with popular head coach Kahari Jones being extended for 3 seasons, emerging star quarterback Vernon Adams extending his contract through 2022, new owners Sid Spiegel and Gary Stern swooping in from Southern Ontario to buy the team from the league, and Montreal native Danny Machocha being hired into his dream job as the club's new GM. Then the pandemic stopped the Alouettes dead in their tracks, and granted, all 9 CFL teams are in the same boat, but arguably no team stands to lose as much as the Alouettes in terms of momentum on the field and goodwill in the community that is now on hold indefinitely.
All right, let's bring the band back of Matt Dunnigan. Ago, can you recall how it started? Is GM Kavis Reed, Antonio Pipkin, who was now is, can they take that next step?
Well, yeah, they've taken that next step. They're going to be contenders now and for the foreseeable future, because they finally found that franchise quarterback. And you look at how difficult that was after AC, guys. It took forever to find that guy, but it's because the game of football had. You look at pocket passer, the Alouettes have, along with a lot of other football teams, we found an exceptional athlete in Vernon Adams. We're going to tailor our offense to fit what he does well.
That's a great. The best quarterbacks in the world right now. You look at Patrick Mahomes, look at Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson. They're that same type of quarterback as he is. So he has an opportunity to do some great things. And you talk about this team, and Rod, you alluded to it earlier about the distractions they had early in the year and how Kahari Jones was able to bring them together. 7 of their 10 victories, they were comeback victories, but I still think they have a couple of areas that needs to be taken care of. One is the defense. The defense was 37 points a game. They were last in passing. And on the offensive side, they lost a couple of big plays receivers. DeVar Posey is in Hamilton, and unfortunately, Quan Bray, I don't think he'll be able to be back in Canada. So they need to address that.
You know, you talk about some of the personnel changes for Montreal offensively. You talk about the athleticism of DA, and they lose a back to William Stanback and Jeremiah Johnson. Who they had? They had Tyrell Sutton, who we're all familiar with, and Shaq Murray Lawrence. And that kid is a dynamite playmaker. So I think that'll bode well for his athletic ability with those 2 guys in the backfield coming off the edge and mixing the pass and the run and play action. But I think they're going to have to be better than they were last year, because I believe that certainly Toronto and Ottawa is going to be a better football franchise. They won 7 games between them last year. I'm talking about Ottawa and Toronto. There's going to be more competition in the Eastern Conference this year. So I think Montreal is pressed to be better.
Davis, you mentioned since Anthony Calvillo, but the one thing Anthony Calvillo had was a top 3 defense in the CFL each year. This defense was the worst in sacks, and they brought in Adrian Tracy. I mean, Adrian Tracy's a good player, but he couldn't find his way onto the Hamilton roster because of all those great bona fide defensive linemen that they had. So can he have his coming out party as well? But this is a defense that lost Tommy Campbell. They lost Patrick Levels, a host of other great defensive players.
Bo Lacombo as well, Henry.
Bo Lacombo, who was like a hitting genius. And, guys, if we don't see this defense improve, we're going to see another situation scenario like Trevor Harris coming into Montreal for the first round of the playoffs last year.
Well, we talked about Vernon Adams. We're going to talk a whole lot more about him and his relationship with head coach Khari Jones later in the show. By the way, we should have been heading into Week 5. We're going to look at the top plays of Week 5 a year ago, and Vernon Adams was certainly a headliner there. This is CFL 2020 on TSN.
Fake the handoff to stand back. Adams gets it away. Huge collision at the 24, hanging on to the ball, though.
That's nasty when you hear the sound on top of it.
Perez sends it deep, likely to the 20, the 25, the 30. Special teams again. No flag down. Foot race. Goodbye. Will Likely will have a touchdown. How about that? Aralahu using up a lot of that play clock. This is blocked. It's blocked, and it will be a touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Harry, the running back.
The running back with the block, the scoop, and the score.
Lucky Whitehead, and he'll get inside. Look out, down the sidelines, and still going inside the 25. Lucky Whitehead, kick return, touchdown. Nothing lucky about it.
Adams gets it off. Gonna try to go himself. What a move! Touchdown, Vernon Adams Jr. as he dances his way across the goal line into the end zone.
Head & Shoulders keeps you flake-free.
Now you can buy from home with the help of Ram Click and Drive. And during Ram Summer Clearance, you pay what we pay with employee pricing plus and 0% financing for 84 months.
Pair anything, even monster trucks and takeout. With the LG V60 dual screen phone on Canada's best national network.
A Until last season, Vernon Adams had been strictly a backup quarterback. He'd made only 4 career starts in 3 seasons, and 3 of those were back in 2016. And then last year, after Antonio Pipkin was injured in Week 1 in Edmonton, Adams took over, and he has been Montreal's #1 QB ever since, throwing for nearly 4,000 yards last season. Here's John Liu.
I just wanted to ask you about preparations for this season, though, Vernon. Even there's so much that's still up in the air. What conversations have you been having with Kahari Jones, Danny Machocha, any of your teammates that are sort of moving towards, I guess, more of a solidified feeling about a potential upcoming season?
Right. Everybody's just the same, optimistic. I'm hearing in the media, you see so much. Sometimes you see stuff where it looks like it's getting worse, and then you see it's getting better. As far as I know right now, I feel like there's a little bit better chance, of playing and everything. Just trying to stay in connection with everybody, and my receivers all the time. Kahari once every other week, Danny once a week. Everybody else just seeing what's going on.
The word that came out in recent days is that the proposal is for a shortened season, potentially 6 games, 8 teams admitted to the playoffs with perhaps some fans in the stands. But I saw a tweet from you just over this past weekend where you said that you felt that 50%, half a season, was really what would be the minimum required to make it worthwhile for players to undertake a season. What's your opinion with respect to the proposal that seems to be on the table for a 1/3 of a season in the works?
Right. So my opinion on it is I love that we're making progress. The CFLPA, the CFL, Randy Ambrosie, they're all working hard to have a season. I love that. You know what I'm saying? But just like my tweet said, I didn't say this, but I want to play. I do want to play. Absolutely all of me wants to play. But I don't care if we do or not. We need at least, and I say at least 50. It could be 75, it could be 80%, 90%, but I say at least 50 because they got the money. Regardless, CFL has the money with or without the funding. They have the money to give us 50% because everybody else is getting paid and we're not. Like I said, I've seen the proposal for the season this year and for CBA next year and all of that. But what I didn't see is if we don't have a season, you guys are getting paid or you guys aren't getting paid. I just wanted to be transparent.
Guys, I remember watching Vernon Adams in his rookie year in 2016, only had 3 starts, but you could really see the potential. It really didn't blossom, Henry, until last year. Now, where would you place him among quarterbacks, starting QBs in the CFL?
Well, it's hard for me to put a guy like Vernon Adams up against some of the true vets in this league, of course, like the Bo Levi Mitchells, the Mike Rileys, and, of course, the Trevor Harrisons, the guys who've been around for years who put up big numbers each and every year. But you know what? I'm going to go out here and say this, guys, that right now he's the most exciting guy for me to watch in the CFL because, to me, he's not only been a guy who's been able to escalate his team, but also his players around him. I mean, you got a lot of guys that were young, like a Jake Weineke, who's a young receiver who was able to really show himself last year during the season. Eugene Lewis, 1,000-yard receiver. But when Vernon Adams was on, there was nobody more exciting in this league to watch. I put him at number 4 right now, guys.
That's a high mark. I think he's got to earn his stripes, Hank. Before I put him up that high, I think people like Matt Nichols are ahead of him, so that'll drop him down 1 right there. But I think he needs some help. As a quarterback, you need a good defense, and that's where they really hurt last year. And I think when they improve there, I think Vernon Adams will too, and it'll take some of the pressure off him.
Is he the #1 quarterback in the league? Of course not right now. Does he have the potential to be there? Without a doubt. Is he must-see TV more so than any other quarterback? Without a doubt also. He's a special player. And you think about it, remember, 2 or 3 years ago when he was in Hamilton? They had him playing receiver. They didn't even think he was good enough to play quarterback. And early on last year, he told Kahari, hey, I just want to get on the field. I'll do anything to get on the field. And Kahari instilled in him, no, you're a quarterback. And that gave him the confidence to go out there and play so well. So I'm really looking forward for him getting back on the field. When Vernon really gets into this league, I can say, honestly, in the next 2 or 3 years, he will be the best player in the CFL.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Kahari several times, and that's really the key, is that relationship between him and Kahari Jones, because, look, He's had numerous stops in this league without success. You talked about in Hamilton where he was possibly playing some receiver. And so why all of a sudden did the light switch turn on, and now, as Hank would say, his coming out party? Well, it's because he got the opportunity and the trust.
How Vernon Adams improved at the time that Khari Jones becomes a head coach in Montreal. And one thing that Jones had said he wanted to impart on him, don't beat yourself up so much after a mistake. Reset, go out. And Adams seemed to show a lot more patience under Khari Jones. It's a relationship so far that's worked very well. With more on that, we go to the guys in the booth, Dwayne Ford and Glenn Suter.
Suits, we talk all the time about football teams taking on the personalities of their head coaches and their quarterbacks. And what a great thing that proved to be for the Montreal Alouettes last season.
Yeah, that head coach quarterback relationship, so important to winning. So today I wanted to touch on the leadership style of head coach Khari Jones. He faced some tough odds. He took over less than a week to go before the season started. The team had just come off the Manziel experiment, which didn't work, and he didn't have an established starting quarterback. So how did he do it so fast? He did it by humbly rolling up his sleeves and going to work, and brought a real honest approach. Players saw more playing time based on performance, based on work ethic in practice, which wasn't always the case with the old regime. He earned the respect of the athletes rather than expecting it, and he also showed some honest emotion. Football fans got a glimpse of that this past year.
They don't know us. They don't know us. Hey, Sleep. This group is real. This group is real. No cap. We played them. We played the refs. We played everybody.
Dwayne, I don't know about you, but that raw emotion pumps me up, man.
Well, and you combine Khari's leadership with a quarterback in Vernon Adams who is ready to take the next step. And I want to demonstrate that by contrasting a couple of games from the last 2 years. We'll look first at 2018, his last start of that season. And you've got Vernon Adams in a second quarter play facing a four-man rush. We're going to have a deep crossing route. Adams is in a hurry to get the ball out. It's out in 2.9 seconds. You'll notice the receivers haven't crossed yet. So you've got a window that's actually getting smaller instead of bigger. Ball ends up getting picked off as you've got too many bodies, too many defenders in that same part of the field. Now, fast forward a year, 2019. Late in the game, he comes on in relief, playing against these same Edmonton Eskimos, same four-man rush, and a similar deep crossing route concept. But this time he's more patient with the football, holds on to it a little longer, even though it's going to mean taking a hit 3.6 seconds before the ball is out. But that means that the receivers have crossed. You see the separation and how open Eugene Lewis is for a 30-yard gain. A lot of credit to Vernon Adams for his maturation, but a lot of credit, Suits, has to go to the coach.
Well, I know you've heard of Cal Poly head coach Bo Baldwin. Baldwin, of course, worked with Bo Levi Mitchell, Matt Nichols, Mike Riley, and Vernon Adams in college. And I read an article a couple of years ago where he thought of the four quarterbacks, Adams had the best upside potential coming out of college. I think we're just scratching the surface on Vernon Adams.
Stick around. We're going to unveil the all-time Montreal Alouettes roster when CFL 2020 continues.
Give me 34, rabbity-babbity-doo. Give me 35. How about 36? Brandon, grab a paddle. This? How about that? Ooh, I got 40. How about somebody give me 45? I got 45. I got 45.
What's going on?
Well, since we've been using Skip the Dishes so much, I figured we didn't need all of this kitchen-y stuff. So I'm working on my online auction skills. And sold to the skinny kid up front.
Did I just buy something?
Yep. And that means I can now enjoy my lunch.
Did you get me anything?
Well, there's probably leftovers in your new fridge. Not that.
Skip the Dishes. You deserve great delivery.
1, 2, 3, 4.
In Japan, we have embraced many things from the West. We honor them. We celebrate them. And master them. In return, we offer something for you to enjoy. Sapporo, Japan's oldest beer brand, now brewed and enjoyed around the world. And our way of saying, arigato.
The last few months have given us a new perspective. It's helped us see just how connected we all are. And as we look at the big picture, it just might remind us how amazing freedom really is. Now you can buy from home with the help of Jeep Click and Drive. And during the Jeep Summer Clearance, you pay what we pay with Employee Pricing Plus and 0% financing for 84 months.
Duels has like an underground feeling to it. Yeah. Has like a Fight Club vibe. Almost like a Fight Club.
On the next World of Dance, the teams face off as the duels continue and passions flare up. Get into an all-new World of Dance Tuesday, 10/8 Mountain, only on CTV. Then stream anytime.
This time last year was a sign of things to come for Vernon Adams, replacing the injured Antonio Pepkin in Week 1. The Montreal QB threw for a career-best 327 yards and a win over Ottawa. 2 passing touchdowns and 2 on the ground. He cemented himself as QB1. Adams would go on to lead the Alouettes to their first playoff appearance since 2014. The Montreal Alouettes were formed after the Second World War in 1946. They had dominant teams in the 50s and the 70s and returned from a 9-year hiatus in the late 90s to consistently rank among the CFL's best for more than a decade. So yes, there's a lot to choose from when picking the Owls' all-time team. At the helm of the Alouettes' all-time team is Pro Football Hall of Fame coach Marv Levy. In his 5 seasons as bench boss, the Owls won the Grey Cup twice and lost a third on a botched 19-yard field goal try. Mark Trestman has the edge in wins and winning percentage, but Levy won without the benefit of a certain Hall of Fame quarterback. Speaking of which, Anthony Calvillo is the undisputed QB of Montreal's all-time team. A 3-time Grey Cup champion, 10-time Eastern All-Star, and 3-time Most Outstanding Player. AC is the holder of practically every Alouettes passing record and has thrown for more yards than anyone in the history of pro football. In front of every great QB is a great offensive line, and Hall of Famer Scott Flory heads up an impressive group. Named a CFL All-Star 9 times and the Outstanding Offensive Lineman twice, Flory was an integral part of an Alouettes era that included 8 Grey Cup berths and 3 championships. Joining Flory is former teammate Brian Chew and Hall of Famers Uzuma Okeke, Ed George, and Dan Yoakum. After bouncing around the football world, Mike Pringle found a home in Montreal, and he made the most of his 7 years there, becoming the CFL's all-time rushing leader, highlighted by his incredible 1998 season in which he ran for a record 2,065 yards and captured his 2nd MOP award. Pringle was one of the most dynamic players in league history. Joining Pringle is George Dixon, the 1962 League MOP and Hall of Famer, who holds the Owls' record for rushing yards in a game with 235. When it comes to Owls receivers, one diminutive player stands above them all. The franchise leader in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, Ben Cahoon made 10 All-Star teams, won 2 Most Outstanding Canadian awards, and with 9 1,000-yard seasons, he staked his claim to the title of the greatest Canadian receiver ever. Rounding out the receiving core is 2010 Grey Cup MVP Jamel Richardson, and a pair of Hall of Famers in Hal Patterson, who has the most receiving yards in Grey Cup history, and 14-year Alouette Peter Dallariva. The franchise's all-time points leader, Don Sweet's status as the Owls' all-time kicker was cemented with 61 points across 5 Grey Cups, highlighted by a record 23 points in the 1977 Ice Bowl, in which he made 6 of 8 field goals. He narrowly beats out Terry Baker, who still makes the squad as the all-time punter. And Stephen Logan, the Owls' all-time leader in return yardage, is the special teamer. The ageless one, John Bowman, heads up a formidable Owls defensive line. Bowman's 134 quarterback sacks are more than double that of the next Alouette and ranks 6th all-time. Should he ever actually retire, the 9-time Eastern All-Star and 2-time Grey Cup champion will be a lock for the Hall of Fame. Lining up alongside Bowman are 2004 Most Outstanding Defensive Player Anwar Stewart, Alfred Payton, who averaged 13 sacks a year with Montreal, and Hall of Famer Junior Ayu. Over an unparalleled 13 seasons, linebacker Chip Cox set franchise records for tackles in a game, season, and career. 4th all-time time in tackles. His remarkable 2013 season featured a league-high 115 tackles, a career-high 12 sacks, and 4 interceptions as he captured Most Outstanding Defensive Player Award honors. The linebacking core also features 1996 Eastern Defensive Player Tracy Gravely and current middle linebacker and 2019 Most Outstanding Canadian Enoch Mwamba. There are few defensive backs in CFL history as decorated as the legendary Dickie Harris, an 8-time Eastern All-Star and 7-time League All-Star. This Hall of Famer holds the franchise record with 38 interceptions, including one that went for a team record 118 yards. The rest of the secondary is made up of the Hall of Fame trio of Marv Luster, Gene Gaines, and Baron Miles, and our very own Davis Sanchez, a 3-time Eastern All-Star and 1-time League Interception King, whose ability to play the corner made him a ratio breaker and difference maker. Before there was AC, there was the rifle synonymous with the Alouette name. Sam Etcheverry was the face of the franchise, who set numerous CFL and pro passing records, some of which stood for decades, and won 508 yards in the 1955 Grey Cup that still stands to this day. Red O'Quinn held all major Alouettes receiving records before Ben Cahoon eclipsed them. Fan favorite Johnny the Ordinary Superstar Rogers burst onto the scene, winning top rookie in 1973. And Herb Trawick, like his Montreal baseball counterpart Jackie Robinson, made history as the first African-American player in CFL history. Well, again, that is quite a list. And you know what? Just confidentially, Milt Stegall used to tell me privately there was only one guy in the league he just couldn't beat, and that was Davis Sanchez. Milt, as you look around these names on the Alouette all-time roster, your thoughts?
Well, I guess I'll talk about my little buddy, Sanchez. I mean, he's on there. They couldn't find a 5th DB, so they had to put him on there. But all honestly, this is maybe the best cover Canadian DB in CFL history. I mean, you look at what this man did. And when you look at DB, they don't specify what position they play. Davis Sanchez was a short side cornerback. I don't think in the history of the CFL we've ever seen a Canadian play short side quarterback. Now, there's some that are forced into the game, but this man was a starter. He was a 5-time All-Star, 3 consecutive year All-Star, 2-time player and a 2-year player in the NFL. It's unfortunate that this man is not in the CFL Hall of Fame. I'm not just saying that because, you know, he works with, I really don't like the guy. I hate him. I really hated him when we played. I like him now, but honestly, Davis and I didn't like each other. But the man can flat out play, and he's more than deserving to be on this all-time team and should definitely be in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame.
But let's go to that defensive line. Anwar Stewart, John Bowman, no question. But somebody we're missing. Alfred Payton's on there because he had monster numbers. But Ed Filion, guys, is a defensive tackle who was on those dominant Alouette teams for 8 years, the anchor of that defense. 6 of those 8 years, he was an all-star. He had 36 sacks as a tackle and a run stopper. Slack Alfred Payton at 52. I mean, look, we're talking about a dominant guy in the middle of that defense. He deserves to be on that team.
Now, I'm going to flip the other side, and I'm talking offense here. And interesting, you look at the receivers, and you got some incredible receivers in Ben Cahoon and Patterson and Jamal Richardson. And I'm just going to throw a couple names out there because I think they're S.J. Green, Kerry Watkins. I look at those guys, and they have a big argument to be on that list as well of a much heralded offense over the years. Certainly in the 70s, and when Anthony was there, they were dominant. And I think those guys need to be in that conversation.
Well, to me, the most underplayed part of my years playing against Montreal, and it's definitely visible as far as on the defensive line with John Bowman and Anwar Stewart. And even they had Filion in the middle, and also Charbonneau, who I still got his number 94 imprinted on my ribs from a few occasions. But, guys, I'm going to focus on Jamel Richardson because I remember back in 2011, he had 111 receptions, almost 1,800 yards, and 11 touchdowns. And there was always that discussion, who should be the MOP? But for me, seeing this young man start his career in Saskatchewan as a snotty-nosed kid, we tried to get his life right. He focused in on the game, got his life right, and he excelled to become one of the all-time greats in CFL history, and especially in Montreal Alouette history. And that's what the game is all about.
This was a franchise that had folded, didn't play from 87 till 96. And you look since 96, how they dominated for so many years. You can see why there's so many great names, like Mike Pringle, another one, obviously, too, on that list. And that's our show for this week. Next week, we focus on the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who rose to the top of the West last season before being upset by Winnipeg in the Western Final. That's next week on CFL 2020. Thanks for watching.